I'm Dom DeMeo with the Lakewood Ranch Business Alliance, and I'm going to introduce Susan Goldstein. Susan is the chair of our Government Affairs Committee, who has helped put this on, and also with Michael Saunders Commercial. So Susan, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Dom. It's a pleasure to open now our second of 3 virtual Meet the Candidate sessions prior to the August 18th primary election. So please go vote. I want to thank the Governmental Affairs Committee, and I see so many of you on. And I'd also like to give a special thanks to the subcommittee that worked diligently to plan this. Elizabeth Cords of Bradenton area EDC, Casey Welch of University of South Florida, and Max Brando of the Realtor Association of Sarasota and Manatee. Thank you for working to make sure we have a great event, and I'm sure today will be as wonderful as we experienced our first meeting. And we cannot do any of this without our amazing staff. We've got Dom DeMeo, who you just heard from and will continue to hear from throughout today, president of the Alliance. We have Dan Sider, vice president, Janet Gonzalez, events and program coordinator, and Amy Trice, membership services manager. And I think I also saw Caitlin on the line as well. And I have to shout out to Lisa Kirkland, our chair. Thank you, thank you. The Government Affairs Committee mission is to identify, educate, and advocate for issues of importance to the Lakewood Ranch Business Alliance. Today's event allows us to educate our members and strengthen and establish relationships with our public leaders. Thank you to our leaders for serving, and for those of you who are running and haven't served, we appreciate you making the commitment to our community and going out there and pounding the pavement. And now we'd like to begin with candidate for Florida Senate District 21, former Representative Jim Boyd.
Thank you. All right, we're good to go? You can hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. So, well, first of all, thank you, Dom, and Susan, Lisa, and Lakewood Ranch Business Alliance for allowing us to have this forum to discuss what's important to our community and giving us the chance as candidates to tell you a little bit about us and who we are and what we hope to accomplish if and when we get elected to the positions that we're seeking. And you've got, I've seen your lineup from throughout the times you're doing this, you've got some good folks. So a few of you that I know really well, if you could keep them muted, please, Don, that would be awesome. And for others of you that I don't know quite as well, in all seriousness, I'll tell you a little bit about myself and a little bit about what, my past experience, and then also any, a little bit about the future. And I don't know if there's time or you plan to have questions of me, but shut me up if you need to, and I'll be happy. I know there's a short time period here, so if you need me to be quiet so you can ask me anything, just please give me that signal. But for those of you that don't know me well, I'm a 4th generation Floridian, lived in Manatee County all my life, went to Palmetto Elementary, Palmetto High School, Manatee Junior College back then, that's how old I am, and then to Florida State and graduated in '78 from Florida State. I married, I would say, the luckiest woman in Manatee County, but I'm probably the luckiest guy outside of John Horn that married my wife, Sandy. We've been married for 37 years. I have 2 adult children, and last December, my daughter had our first grandchild. So that's a game changer and something Sandy and I are enjoying immensely. I am the CEO and a partner with now my son in Boyd Insurance and Investment Services here in Bradenton. We're now, with him being here, 3 generations of service to the community, and very proud of that. We're also members of some of the local business groups, yours being one of them, Manatee Chamber, and we've been active in those organizations, either myself, my son, or certainly our team members through the years. Back in the late 90s, I was a Palmetto City Councilman. I served for 1 term on the Palmetto City Council, and I had the honor and distinction the last 6 weeks, I believe it was, of my term to be mayor. The mayor resigned to run for county commission, so I got to move up to be mayor. And I certainly have a lot of respect for those that put themselves up for local service. That's a tough job. I was elected to the Florida House in 2010, and I served 4 terms, 2-year terms, as you know, 4 terms, and I was termed out in 2018. And during my time in the House, some of the things that I did, I was fortunate enough, I think, for our community to be able to rise into a leadership position pretty early on. My third year as a sophomore, I was appointed by Will Weatherford as State Affairs Chair. Later, after that, another couple of years, I was Majority Whip. I also chaired Ways and Means Committee, which is the all things taxes in Florida. And then my final time chairmanship was Commerce Committee, which is pretty much any business organization, utilities, gaming, tourism. All of that was under my purview in the House. My goal when I went to the legislature, and tried to be kind of my mantra while I was there, to first think of families, businesses, and our community, and then finally in that vein, when I say families, mostly educational choices to give families the opportunity to have a leg up if they weren't able to because of their geography or their zip codes, to have a way to find good education for their kids. I always worked and fought for families there. We're facing some tough times as I seek this Senate seat. You know, by all estimates, at least right now, we're looking at a $2 billion shortfall when we get to Tallahassee. I would suspect by the time we get there, it'll be more than that. I can tell you my first 2 years in the Florida House, we faced a $6 billion shortfall. We were just coming off, the Great Recession. And what we found was there were ways to handle it. We learned pretty quickly that in lots of our conservative, my conservative colleague views and mine, we had a spending problem more than we had a revenue problem. So we made some tough choices, and we made some cuts that weren't pleasant, but that had to be done. And we kind of found out that most everybody survived, and there was a way to get through that, which taught us lessons for the future, and something that I think is important for us as we look to serve in the future. We cut many regulations, many around businesses, needless, kind of just onerous, time-consuming, expensive regulations for businesses, and we cut a number of those through those 8 years and got that behind us. Some of the things I worked on while I was there, my first couple of years, I sponsored automobile insurance reform. I worked on elections reform. I was the chairman of the committee and the sponsor for that bill. Also worked with Adam Putnam on accountability for charities. And then in my Ways and Means chairmanship, we cut taxes $300 million in my year. We cut taxes every year that I was there, but under my committee and our leadership, my partnership with Senator Stargill in the Senate, we were able to cut about $300 million in taxes there. One of the things, as many of you know, I became very, very passionate about, and I would say probably the lead legislator on this issue, was the opioid crisis and the issues surrounding that. I didn't have any intention of going to Tallahassee and being involved in that fight, but when I saw what it was doing to our community, especially Manatee County, being the epicenter, sadly, for a couple of years of overdose and deaths with this deadly drug called fentanyl, I realized something had to be done. So I asked the speaker if I could work with a variety of stakeholders and craft legislation that would hopefully have an impact there. And I was able to. I worked with Pam Bondi and the Florida Sheriff's Association on penalty bills for traffickers and dealers. That was our first step toward this problem. And we put stiff penalties in, minimum mandatory penalties for dealers of traffickers and dealers of fentanyl. And then the next year, we worked on some of the reform from the prescription and use perspective. And as you know, we cut back times that dangerous opioids could be prescribed, made medical training mandatory, made the across state lines, prescription drug monitoring program, data monitoring program, or drug monitoring program, mandatory across state lines, and also mandatory use within our state. While the problem is never going to go away, sadly, I think we made a dent in it, and I think we did some good things to combat the problem. That's something, sadly, that will continue on in a variety of forms. These dealers make a lot of money off of this, and traffickers. So when we fix one problem, they tend to find another one that there's tend to be another one that pops up that we find we have to deal with. But I hope to be a lead advocate for continued work there. One just anecdotal thing that made me feel really good. I was at Walgreens getting my the regular flu vaccine last year, and the pharmacist said, "Hey, you sponsored House Bill 21, didn't you?" I'm like, "Dang, she knows the number of the bill. This is not going to be an easy conversation." And I said, "Yes, ma'am, I did." And she said, "Well, I want to thank you." She said, my store that I'm in charge of here at 43rd and Manatee, normally before this bill, we had 3 tote bags a week of narcotics, of opioids coming in here for distribution. And she said, now we're down to 1. So she said, "Thank you. That's making a difference in families and people's lives." So I'm very proud of that, and I will continue to fight for families like ours and yours and our community on that platform. I have, fortunately, I've been endorsed by Senator Galvano, Wilton Simpson, who's incoming president of the Senate as well, also the Senate leadership. Governor DeSantis has endorsed me. A few others that might be important. The Florida Chamber has endorsed me. Associated Industries of Florida have endorsed me. Our local and regional sheriffs, certainly Rick Wells, Tom Knight, Gualtieri in St. Pete. I had a great conversation, and the endorsement of Grady Judd over in Polk County, Chris Naco above us in Pasco County. So that, I think, indicates that I stand on the side of law enforcement, and with respect to all that's going on around us right now in our world, in our country, we have to do that. We have to stand firm and protect law enforcement. I can't, so I was telling Rick Wells last week, I couldn't imagine being a sheriff's deputy now that goes out on the street. And well, I can in Manatee County because I know where our sheriff and our leadership stands. But in many of these communities, we're asking law enforcement to go out on the street, and the mayors, the police chiefs don't support them. They don't know what is going to happen from one scene to a next. And when they have to make a potentially life-changing split-second decision, the last thing our law enforcement needs to worry about is somebody having their back. And I will promise you and guarantee you that I will always have the back of law enforcement and those that stand between us and the evil that's out there in our society. So as we move forward into this election, next 2 weeks from now, or a little bit less, is the primary, and it's a very important primary. I hope to be successful there, and then I move on into the general election. I have an opponent from the Hillsborough section of our Senate district. As you probably know, Manatee County is the bigger share of the district. It's about 68%, 32% of the district is eastern Hillsborough County. So we've made some friends up there. We're getting some recognition up there and some time to meet with folks and get to know them and them get to know us. So I feel comfortable about the general election, but we can't take anything for granted. I'm working hard. I'm out there, meeting with the folks that I can, either virtually or kind of one by one at a distance if possible. But I know that I don't just deserve to be elected because I was, your representative for 8 years in the House. I know I have to earn that. I have to earn and keep your support and your respect of what we're doing. But I assure you, every day when I get up and go to Tallahassee or get up and work here in the district, I remember who elected me. I remember who I report to, and I remember who I'm responsible to. So I would love your support. I would love your consideration. And second place isn't real cool in this game, so I'm going to work hard to win. I know I've got an opponent you're talking to, and I understand he's a very nice man. I haven't met him yet, but I understand he's a nice man as well. But I hope to be your primary winner, and then go on to the general election and hopefully and I plan to be successful there as well. So I know I've got maybe 3 or 4 minutes left, not much, and I don't want to keep talking. Dom, if you have questions or if anybody needs to know anything specific from me, I apologize for drooling on there, but I wanted to get all that out.
Well, Jim, we told everyone we weren't going to do the question and answer. So I don't know that we have any teed up, and we didn't plan on having any teed up, but we sure are. You gave us considerate time, and we wish you well, as we will with everyone that's coming through tonight. But you got 12 days left, at least for the primary, and I'm sure it'll be a long race for you. Tough mornings, tough nights, but keep it up. and we hope to see you on the other side. So thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to it. If anybody has any specific questions or want to talk about anything, I know there's some big issues with minimum wage and some things that are coming before us, and I'm happy to talk to any of you about that. And I can assure you in the big picture, I stand with you on the tough issues. So just let me know if you need anything, and I'll be around. But thanks so much for having me, and thanks for your consideration.
Yep, thanks for joining us this evening.
Yes, sir. Goodbye. Goodbye, all.
So members, we next up we have John Manners Houman. John is joining as Mr. Boyd told us, from the northern region of the Florida Senate District 21. John, you should have joined us now from the waiting room. I hope you did. So welcome, and the floor is yours.
John, you're muted.
Oops. Can you hear me now?
We
We hear you.
Now you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Reason I'm running for office is the improvement of our society. I have 6 basic ideas. First one is the health of our society. Starts with prenatal care. The education of our society starts at birth and in the lifelong endeavor. The protection of our society, long-range planning for clean energy, agriculture, agricultural bloom, beach erosion, infrastructure, natural habitat, safe drinking water, and saltwater intrusion. 4, I believe in human rights, be it women's rights, gay rights, or civil rights. And you should be judged as a person and not on your race, creed, color, or sexual orientation. To my amazement, the Florida House has voted 4 times for the Equal Rights Amendment to the Constitution, but the Senate has said no. Ask your senators why. 5, changes to our criminal justice system that treats the rich and guilty better than the poor and innocent. Brian Stevens. DWB. Decriminalizing of nonviolent crimes. A small majority of our population are bad people, and there's only one place for them. The rest are good people that have made mistakes and should be pointed in the right direction. There are 2 educational systems in Florida. One is the K through 12 and college system, and the other is our criminal justice system. Which one do you want to send your children to? Afterthought, college is cheaper than prison. And I would like adopting Pennsylvania Police Reform Bill 1841 and 1910. Streamlining our regulation of business in Florida, moving Florida towards a benefit corporation state. If you want to make your profit and at the same time act in a socially conscious manner, you can incorporate as a benefit corporation under Florida statute title 36, chapter 607, part 3. And that's basically what I'm running for office for. Any questions?
So John, we hadn't been planning for questions, but since you have a little bit of time, I will see if there's questions in the chat. John, we have a question. David Fink said background. I'm not sure what David means there, but what's your background that brings you into the running for office?
I've been a licensed electrician for over 30 years. I've been in real estate, owned a few companies, and I've went to college. I was 3.5 years in engineering and computer science. And I've owned small companies that have had up to about 10, 15 people working for me.
I have a question coming in reference to Amendment 2. John, do you know Amendment 2 is the minimum wage? I guess they're asking, how do you favor or against the Amendment 2?
I'm kind of in favor. I think everybody should be able to make a livable wage.
And then we have what looks like one additional question. Have you ever served in any public office or have public service?
No, I haven't.
So question in regards to the budget, John. The question goes, given the budgetary challenges that the state is facing currently, how do you envision addressing the shortfalls?
Hopefully the federal government will step in, which I doubt will fulfill all of our needs, but probably one way is to increase the corporate income taxes on out-of-state businesses. And not leave basically the ones here in Florida unchanged, but anybody that is out of state, which is, a majority of the people that have businesses in Florida, they take the money out of state and it's not recirculated within the state.
So we have a little time remaining before the next speakers. If there's any additional questions, I'd be glad to get answers for those that are listening. Question comes in, John, what committees would you like to serve on in Tallahassee if you're elected?
All of them.
Well, you got to pick a couple. They're not going to let you on all of them.
Probably the appropriations committees, mostly business, because that's where I think, there's a lot of experts in teaching and healthcare, and I think my preference would be business type, because I want to move Florida from a C-type corporation to a B. I don't know if any people out there know what a benefit corporation is. Do any of you out there know what a business corporation is? It was adopted by Florida State Legislature July 2014. That's where a business has obligations to the community as well as its stockholders.
So John, obviously when you get it, if you were to get into the office, you would need to support someone for the Senate president. Have you decided or thought about who you would support as the Senate president?
Not at the moment. I would have, I'm familiar with a few of the people, but I'd have to actually be there and talk to them before I would make a decision. There's a lot of good people in our legislature.
And your opponent addressed a little bit of some of the tension that we have across our country with the police. So how do you stand on support of police presence?
I'm supportive, but there has to be some changes made. Do you know what the Pennsylvania legislature amendment was to their state bill?
You know, I'm formerly from Pennsylvania, but I've been gone so long, I should probably know, but I don't. So why don't you tell me?
It's just a police reform bill. It's the House Bill of 1814 and 1910, which there's a database of policemen and any violations that they have that is accessible if they go looking for a new job.
So it's keeping track of
Yeah.
background.
And another point I would like, usually when a police department fires somebody, the union rep steps in and they have binding arbitration, and about 70% of the time that person is reinstalled or given his job back, where I don't think that is right. If a policeman, I mean, they should be held accountable like any other person when they violate their oath of office. And with the union and binding arbitration, what happens is the majority of these bad policemen know they can get away with it, so they get reinstated with pay. So, I mean, they don't care. They know the union's they protect the bad people and not the good people.
So, John, if we adopted those bills that Pennsylvania has brought in, does that mean that when one of our sheriff offices is looking to hire, they'd be able to go into the database and see that information, or be required to?
Both. Either, yeah, they would look, and the one policeman up in Minneapolis, how many complaints did he have? 19, and he's still in. That shouldn't be, the case. He should have been fired a long time ago. I mean, 99% of them are great people. With my real estate office in South Florida, on the East Coast, I was across the street from a police station, and I had 3 or 4 of them working as real estate agents for me, and they were great people, and they loved the community, and I was proud of them. But there's just that minority that gives the police department a bad name, and they shouldn't be able to or allowed to stay in office. I mean, that's the only bad thing I think about unions, is that they protect the bad people, and that's it.
So we have just a few more minutes. Is there any additional questions for John?
Oh, you addressed me as Mr. Manners earlier.
Did I do that wrong?
Well, that's okay. I started in 2012. I was thinking about passing on information to my the younger generation. I started a list, and then I have ideas that were passed on to me from my great-grandfather, my grandfather, my dad, and my own personal views that I like to pass on to the younger generation, that I wish somebody would have told me when I was 18. That's how I got the name Mr. Manners, and then I just expanded that to my website.
Okay, well, thank you for. I'm sure everybody was asking or wondering that, so that's a
Yeah.
that is a great.
If you go to my website, the second half of the first page is all these ideas that would be good ideas to pass on to your kids and grandkids.
So John, you said, and the question came up. I'm going to try to ask it a little different. You said you were in favor of Amendment 2. The question was, what was your stand on the minimum wage? But you already answered. One of the concerns, I think, with the people that are against Amendment 2 are that jobs could be lost. So, if that was to be the case, what's your stance on job creation for the region?
It starts with education. Florida has a lot of good training programs. I was lucky when I first moved here. They had a pre-apprenticeship program. I went down to the state employment office and I was looking for work and they signed me up for that. And I think that should be an idea to pass on to other trades, because I had 30 years. I got my journeyman's license out of it. And I had a good career as a journeyman electrician. So there's all kinds of vocational schools, but it's basically education. That's whole, job creation. The jobs are out there. It's the problem is the education, the educated people to fill the jobs. And it starts, education starts when you're 2 or 3 years old, and it's accumulative. You just don't learn and learn and learn. You learn by, you add on things. You learn how to do things, and there's more than one, you have to learn a lot of things and put them on. It's like the old erector set, that's before your time. Legos. I bought my son Legos when he was about 5 or 6. And over about a 5 or 6 year period, I bought him Legos, and his Legos are like an education. You build on them, and by the time he was about 10 years, he had, almost like Legoland. And education is the same way.
So the erector set was made of metal, am I right?
Yeah.
I'm not as young. I'm not as young as you think I am.
Yeah, because I don't even remember. I can't remember how long ago they stopped selling them. But I had one for my 5th or 6th birthday, Christmas present. And I made a Ferris wheel.
So John, I think we'll try to make this the last question. I'm waiting for the next candidate to come in. I haven't seen her come in, but I'll a question, and it's not quite a question, so I'll try to spin it as a question. And it again talks about Amendment 2, and if you're in support, what's your feelings on free market? Shouldn't that dictate the price and value of labor versus a government putting a price on that labor? That's not from me. That's from someone else in the audience. So.
Yeah. It's kind of a two-sided question. In a free market, it should work, but the large corporations, their bottom line is profit, and by cutting wages, that's how they make profit. Do you know how corporate profit started, or the idea that the corporation owes their allegiance to stockholders? Back about 100 years ago, Henry Ford wanted to increase wages for his employees and also invest money in infrastructure for his company. But the Dodge brothers sued him. So instead of putting all that money into the infrastructure and employees, they won the lawsuit, and he had to put the money into stocks, or into money in stocks. That all started 100 years ago. That's why corporations are profit motive.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on. I know that you and I spoke, I guess, a few weeks ago, and it's not something.
I was just going to ask you about that. That's one of my favorite stories, and I like the one you told. I don't know if it looks like all these other people are a lot younger than us, and how that you're a banker, right? And I had a friend that was a banker, and he told me, this is years and years ago, I wanted to buy a car, and he says, yeah, go ahead, just write a check. And I wrote a check and it went through. And I wrote the check actually 90 miles away in a different state and still went through. And I drove off the lot with the car. And you were telling about your farmers that you said, go ahead and buy it, and you ran the papers through. It's amazing how things have changed.
Well, regulation
Yeah.
has driven some of that change, and banks have to adhere to it. And thankfully, I'm not in that industry anymore. I know a few of my banker friends are on here this evening, so
I'm sure I'm sure they remember those days.
Yeah. So I'm going to wrap up, John. I appreciate you coming this evening. I started to say that I know you don't do a lot of this, so we truly appreciate the opportunity to allow our members to see.
Yeah, I planned on doing more, but with the coronavirus, how can you get out? And I had a good plan, but without being able to get out and do any campaigning, this is about all I can do.
Well, that's why we're doing it on the Zoom as a Zoom presentation, because it gives the people the opportunity to hear you, see you, and you get to see multiple people at the same time as well. So thank you for joining us this evening, and I wish you well in the 12 days remaining in the election cycle.
Thank you for having me, and thank everybody else. Nice to see you.
You have a good evening. So I am not sure. Next up should be Donna Barcombe. I don't know, Donna, are you in the audience? I don't see you in the waiting room. So I'm wondering, did you make it to the audience and we didn't know it? You probably need to respond to me in chat, because you won't be able to talk. So no Donna. So audience, if you don't mind, let's give it a minute. Donna should have been on at 4:30 with a 4:40 start. So we're right on time with the time that I planned on having her from a start perspective. I'm going to give her a minute. We don't have Fiona McFarland standing by either, so it's not like I can move. Both have confirmed, so I can't understand why she wouldn't have been here, other than that could have happened. She thinks she has the wrong code. Well, thanks, Mike. I appreciate that. Is there something that I need to get somebody to call her and help her through? If you can get me a cell phone, I'll see if we can get in touch and help her get on. So Donna is trying to enter. She may have the wrong code. I saw Mr. Horn's comment, and that's not happening, but good try. He followed up with a just kidding, which I don't think he was. So everyone, while we're here, I'll take a few minutes and I'll do my exit instead of holding you the minute or two in the backside of the meeting. If you're a member of the Alliance, we sent out early this week our annual survey. We're asking that you go out and look at the survey, respond. We have a few hundred responses already, but it's going to help us address the rest of this year as things have changed. and what 2021 will look like as well, as we try to deliver a program for you all that helps do what we do from a mission perspective, connect and help you grow. So please consider doing that. And Donna is trying to get on. I don't know. They've resent the link. So Donna, did you come in under Ann? Hmm. Donna, I think you're muted, but we're not sure where you're at on in the participants.
Am I muted now?
Yes, you are. You're good.
Okay, so what happened was I could not get in through the link you gave me. I tried like 5 times and I could not get in with the password. So Mike sent me another way to get in.
Oh, well, Mike always has that back door.
Well, I was going to call you, but I didn't know what was happening. So hello,
right.
I just went through a little bit of a 15-minute panic. So where are we?
All right, so I'm just gonna kick it off. We have Donna Barcombe. Donna's running for the Florida House District 72, and Donna, we're glad you're able to be with us this evening. You have 15 minutes to address the audience, and the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much. Yes, I am Donna Barcombe, not Ann Rawlings, and I am running as a Republican for the State Representative District 72. I have deep roots in Sarasota. It's the place I love and the place I call home. I have lived all over the United States. In fact, I graduated from UCLA and I received a master's degree in physical therapy from Boston University. I have never lived the 33 years that I have lived in Sarasota anywhere else. I raised my 4 sons in Sarasota. In fact, they all graduated from the Sarasota County Public High Schools, both Pineview and Sarasota High School in the district. I also own a business called Professional Physical Therapy Center, which is an outpatient physical therapy clinic in the district. My husband owns a business, West Coast Spine Center in the district. I have always been a community volunteer. It's a payback for me. I feel blessed with what I've had here. And I started out as Southside PTA president, and where I saw children and the staff and principal and parents all working together to optimize a children's educational experience. I then was Junior League of Sarasota, Inc. president. And that was a very interesting experience. So for those of you who don't know Junior League, we implemented Teen Court in Sarasota. We started Children's First, which it serves as a Head Start program for 900 of our lowest income youth. We Historic Spanish Point and Child Protection Center. So I'm well versed in the not-for-profits in Sarasota. I then was elected to the Sarasota Memorial Hospital Board, Sarasota County Hospital Board officially, and I was reelected for 3 terms, a total of 12 years, twice its chair. I then was elected to the Sarasota Charter Review Board, serving my 2nd term and will be ending in November of 2020. there's been a lot of discussion and certainly illumination of my service on both boards, but I'd like to discuss a little bit about my service on the Sarasota County Hospital Board. When I started, the hospital was in dire straits. We were reporting negative operational margins, and we were living off of our investment portfolio. Our employee morale was really low. In fact, our physicians were leaving, and the community was really concerned about the quality of service that we were providing. So it went, let's see, within my first term, I became chair of that board. We made a CEO change, and we engaged the Studer Group, which is a data-driven customer service initiative. And one of the things that we set as a vision was to be the best community hospital in the United States. Lofty goal, yes it is, but through a lot of hard decisions made, we just was evaluated by the US News and World Report, and we were recognized as one of the top 37 hospitals out of 4,000 hospitals evaluated. And that puts us in company with Johns Hopkins University, Stanford, UCLA, Northwestern, Mass General Hospital, and the Mayo Clinic. So I think our vision was more than surpassed with difficult decisions and a long-term strategy. Now, what am I going to do for Sarasota and for the Sarasota-Bradenton area? And so I'll get into the issues. As a business owner, I'm not going to illuminate, because I know all of you are living it, all the challenges that we are having under the pandemic, COVID-19. I know intimately the challenges that a lot of you are having in regards to potentially diminished revenue, meeting payroll, being concerned about your employees and their safety, and the increased costs of doing business under the CDC guidelines and mandates from either local or state governments. So one of the things that I would say is, one of the first things that we would need to do as legislators is to pass a waiver of liability for COVID for businesses, so they can open back up without being fearful. And I've talked to many people, especially in manufacturing, and they're very concerned about that. But I think we're all concerned about that. So that'd be one of the things. Secondly, I think that legislators are going to have to prioritize and strategize, considering our budget is not going to be the same next session as it was for previous sessions. So that's going to be a huge challenge, and difficult decisions will need to be made. I also gone on record of being supportive of the internet sales tax. So I think that's a potential revenue source for Florida. And initially, and I hope still, with the hope that we can reduce or eliminate the commercial lease tax. I think as a conservative Republican, that my basic philosophy as far as being pro-business is that I believe businesses will lead us out of this economic downturn. So with that, I think we need to establish the climate by keeping taxes low and keeping unnecessary, overburdensome, and regulations out of the system so that businesses can flourish. So with that, I would say that I would not be supportive of the Amendment 2, which is the $15 an hour mandate. Yeah. All right, in regards to some other things that I have been very supportive of, I'm very supportive of affordable, would like to make an environment of supportive of affordable healthcare. So really, what the pandemic did was sort of allow a potentially disruptive industry, telemedicine, to really blossom. Now, I will tell you that I think that there can be abuse in regards to that, but I do believe that it allows physicians and patients to be monitored in regards to chronic issues and avoiding maybe acute episodes in the hospital, which would be much more costly. And also triage, and it obviously provides a much greater ease of access for both the provider and the patient. Obviously, there can be abuse, and that's going to have to be monitored. Secondly is I support the increased scope of practice that occurred this last session. I believe that that also increases access for individuals to healthcare, and I would support some continued efforts in that regard. Third would be maybe a waiver, a less litigious environment to prevent or avoid the defensive practice of medicine that occurs now. Environment and water quality, that's a huge one for me. I do not feel being Republican and being concerned about the environment is mutually exclusive. I am an avid, my family, my 4 sons are avid scuba divers and boaters. And so we love the water. We've always enjoyed the water. And many of us experienced 2 years ago, the ravages of red tide, both on our hospitality and tourism industry, as well as our wildlife and our quality of life and perhaps our health. So I am very supportive of the big infrastructure changes that are going on around Lake Okeechobee. And hopefully we can continue to support those. We're in the second of a 4-year plan. 2, I am supportive of the research and the funding going into the research for mitigation of both red tide and blue-green algae, and hope we can continue that. 3, I am very supportive of best practice management practices as described by Jim Strickland, who's one of my supporters and has educated me in regards to agriculture and water use, and hopefully we can continue those kind of creative innovations in the use of water. Funding Forever Florida, and not only does that give us and maintain free and pristine lands, but it also protects wetlands, which can be a filtration system for water. And lastly, I support the Clean Waterways Act that was passed this past year that addresses some stormwater runoff issues, as well as monitoring septic tanks. And public school education. That has been, obviously 2/3 of the teachers don't want to go back to school, and 2/3 of the parents want to send their kids back to school. And it's going to be just a very challenging time. But I will say this, I think there are kids who will do very well, students that will do very well in virtual learning. And so that's a great option. I also think there are students, I had 4 sons. I had 2 students who would have done great with remote learning, very motivated learners. I had 2 that would still probably be going to school if they were doing remote school. So that's a huge challenge for some parents, depending on your child's style of learning, as well as the accessibility that child has to technology and the equipment necessary to be able to engage in remote learning. So having said that, I am very concerned about closing achievement gaps and decreasing increasing our graduation rates. And with not allowing some students to go back to school, my concern that the achievement gaps, especially when we're addressing generational poverty, is going to be significant. And we may be eliminating opportunities for some of those kids to get out of the conditions they're in. Not even including, obviously, what other things other people have brought up, which is basic needs, nutritional needs, as well as the, people being able to, or parents being able to go back to work. Secondly, I was very involved, as I told you, in the Southside PTA, and I was also Education Task Force Chair for all the junior leagues of Florida and did a lot of advocacy up in Tallahassee for that pretty large group. I also was part of the group that started Sarasota School for Arts and Sciences, which is a middle school, public charter middle school, which is A-rated at this current time. And I'm very supportive of educational choice, especially with public charter schools, and hope that is able to be continued because it provided a unique environment for a specific group of kids. I am very supportive of the benchmark for excellent student thinking under Commissioner Richard Corcoran. I think that will allow teachers to teach instead of teaching for the test. So I'm excited about that. Children learning more civics, especially in high school, and getting rid of some of the kinks and oddities of Common Core, apparently teaching multiple different strategies to solve an individual problem and not being solution driven, but strategy driven. The other thing is I support Governor DeSantis in rewarding starting teachers with increased base salary. That's a way to attract teachers without new teachers, and there's nothing more important that one generation can provide to the next but a good education. So I'm very excited about a lot of the initiatives in education and hope that can be continued once obviously the virus is under control. I happen to be very optimistic as a healthcare provider, as well as a member of the Institutional Review Board on the hospital, which does the clinical studies, and as a former researcher in clinical studies. I think that once again, the free market is driving incentive as well as incentive to find solutions, and hopefully, if not a vaccine, a way to control and treat the virus. Obviously, we're seeing less deaths, perhaps not less cases, but significantly less deaths over time. And I hope that this trend continues, as well as a way to actually treat the disease and lessen its impact. I don't know how much time I have. How much time do I have since I started a little late? Oh, I have 5 minutes, 4 minutes? Okay. I support the full funding of the Sadowski Trust Fund. I believe that affordable housing is a necessary, a real need in Sarasota, and I'm sure in Manatee. And so I do support the full funding of the Sadowski Trust Fund. Obviously, there's going to be infrastructure needs, especially in transportation in both Manatee and Sarasota. I've had the experience of making tough decisions, and I believe I am a very qualified candidate to go up to Tallahassee and fight for Sarasota to get the funds necessary for some of the real traffic issues that Sarasota is having. In summary, I believe that the totality of the experiences that I've had, to include both my volunteer experiences as well as my business acumen, has provided me the skill sets to be able to go to Tallahassee, to fight for Sarasota, to fight for the Sarasota Manatee region, my knowledge of South Sarasota and all that's involved. So I believe I am the best qualified candidate to send to Tallahassee. And I'd like you to go on donnabarcomb.com if you want to know a little bit more about me. And I guess we're not asking questions, so I can't answer questions. But anyway, I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to speak to you. And I apologize, Dom. I don't know what happened, but luckily I finally got on, even though I'm under Ann Rawlings. So remember, I am Donna Barcomb. In fact, that's my sign, Donna Barcomb, B-A-R-C-O-M-B. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Donna. We truly appreciate it. 12 more days left in the race. I'm sure you'll run hard for the next 12 days. And Truly appreciate you spending the extra 15 minutes to get on and make sure you got on, because we wanted you here for sure, so the audience could hear your background and what you do bring to the table as you run and finish this race. So thank you for joining us this evening, and have a good night.
Okay, do I get to watch anybody else?
No, we're going to put you back in the waiting room. You can stay there or leave, but you enjoy your evening.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Our next candidate, Fiona McFarland, is with us. We're just a few minutes late, Fiona, so we appreciate you joining us as well. And Fiona is running for Florida House District 72 as well. So Fiona, the floor is yours. Thank you for being here tonight.
Thanks, Dom. Good evening, everyone. I really appreciate your all's flexibility in doing this forum, because although the virus has certainly changed how we campaign, it's not changed the importance of understanding who you're voting for. And whichever of us ultimately wins this election, we're going to play an important role in representing Sarasota as the state moves forward from this pandemic. So thank you for taking the time to be an informed voter. I'll run through my bio briefly and then touch on a couple issues that I think might be on some of your minds. I'm originally a New Yorker, but I went to the Naval Academy for college and then served on active duty as an officer, sailing around the world on guided missile destroyers. And then I served briefly in the Pentagon before getting an MBA, and then spending some time in the business world with management consulting firm McKinsey & Company. I moved here shortly after transitioning off active duty with my husband, Matt, who's originally from Florida. And I'm still stationed in the reserves out of MacDill Air Force Base. Matt and I had our first child on the eve of the virus outbreak at Sarasota Memorial, and I'm currently hearkening back to my Navy days of very little sleep, but a ton of family and a ton of love, and I'm happy and blessed for that. Now, what I found when I moved here is that, particularly in comparison with some of the places that I've been stationed, Florida is remarkably well run. We have an attractive business environment and no income tax. There's a high degree of personal freedom, and we have incredible access to nature. And I believe that all of these things are in part because Florida is a case study in what 20 plus years of conservative state government and management can bring. And I want to join that team. I want to join that team because I take service to our country and to our people very seriously, as you might have guessed by my time in the Navy and all these other things. Now, what I learned in the Navy, as well as in the business sector, and I think this will serve me well in Tallahassee, is how to listen. Politicians talk too much. Politicians shouldn't have all the answers. They should know how to find them, which is by working with those who know best, the subject matter experts, or really just the people that they represent. And that's you all, if you live in District 72. I do want to talk about a couple issues that I've been hearing from the business community as I've been out in the last, well, really year since I started this campaign, but specifically since the virus. And these are some things that I'm hearing that are on top of mind and that have my interest. But I think the single biggest issue that I hear from people in the business community is how to get back to work and how to do it safely. Employers are worried about liabilities, both in keeping their employees and customers safe, and employees themselves are wondering if they're going to be working from home forever in their pajamas, or if they're going to get back to work, and even if they'll have a job at the end of the year. And then industry leaders are maybe even reinventing the future of work and for their market. Now, there's a lot of avenues that state government can plug in on here, and it motivates me more than ever to be part of these conversations in the legislature. But I've been in talks with several leaders around Sarasota, and I believe many of you in this room. I'm not totally sure who's on the participant list here. But many of you have helped guide my thinking on this, and the one that's got me fired up right now is infrastructure. Infrastructure was a part of my platform before the virus, and it's the same now. It's just shifted a bit. And I'd like to do some work around broadband and roads infrastructure specifically. So on broadband, between what we've all learned from online education, shifting this last semester, or those of us working remote, or even politicians campaigning over Zoom, is that internet is going to be very important. And there's some avenues that the state can lean in on here on improving the cell and broadband coverage across the state. There's some interesting case studies coming out of places like Texas, where municipalities have set up public Wi-Fi. I'd love to see if there's some either credit subsidies or tax credits, or just equity investments that the state could consider to incentivize some private provider expansion into some of our more rural or underserved areas. And then on roads, there's an opportunity now to take advantage of a low interest rate environment, and there's some available labor, and we can really just focus on building out our roads and improving our highway system, particularly as we have more favorable levels of traffic. Those of you who are in tourism, I think the way that travel will rebound first is by interstate travel, which is by your car, before we'll see air travel rebound. So that's, even more motivation for us to be focusing on roads. And I think that's a place that we could lean in on at the state level, and it's fully within the bounds of the state's responsibility to provide for infrastructure and roadway systems. Now, you guys are hearing from a lot of candidates tonight, and I'll keep it brief because it feels like Friday to me. Early voting starts this weekend. I think all of our campaigns are in a great place. Each of us have put in a ton of work over the last year. And whatever happens on election day, District 72 will be well represented by any of the candidates here today. So thank you all who are still listening. Thank you for the Lakewood Ranch Business Alliance and to Dom for putting this together. I appreciate just getting this little window to share more about myself as you think of who to vote for. And if I've said stuff tonight that resonates with you, I hope you'll consider giving me your support. The District 72 is going to be well represented one way or another. I'll just leave you with the final message. I think that you should consider voting for me for two main reasons. One is that in the Navy, I learned how to expect the unexpected. When we were out on ships in the middle of nowhere, if something went wrong or something happened, there was no one coming to our aid. We had to figure it out with what we had at hand. And that uncertainty is the same sort of environment that I think government is existing in right now as we move forward from the virus. None of us know how this is going to turn out. Just that the future will be very different from the past, and that's exactly the environment I'm used to working in. And the second reason is I hope that the voters and you all will view me as an investment in the future. The decisions that I make in Tallahassee will define our generation. I've determined to devote the rest of my life to public service, hopefully an elected office starting next year. But these are issues that I'll be working on in one way or another. And I hope to have your support, because I think it's pretty critical how we manage between short-term fixes and long-term solutions with keeping a watchful mind on the amount of debt that the state is accruing. And, just finally, vote for me because when I was 18, I took an oath to the Constitution to support and defend it. And that's an oath that binds me still. And no matter what happens, I'll always put service over self. So thank you all. And Dom, I appreciate you hosting and for everyone tuning in. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Fiona, for being able to hang on. We were a few minutes late getting to you, and but your delivery was fantastic. We appreciate you spending your time with us this evening. And we have a cancellation behind you, so not to put you on the spot, you want to take a question or two, and if you don't, I understand that too. We did tell both you and everyone else before you that we weren't going to do questions, so you don't have to feel like you're being on the spot. Jason,
no, I'd be happy to. It's also happy hour. any
Yeah,
letter
well, that may not be a good thing. So I'm gonna open up the chat room for 1 or 2 questions for Fiona if you would like to ask them, but just 1 or 2, and then we'll let her get back to her evening. Being a young mom, and having 3 children, my wife had the children. I just helped. I understand what that means. So
Yeah, well, it's a team sport.
if there's any questions, the chat room's open, and you're more than welcome to ask them. And if not, then we'll wrap up for the evening. And Fiona, it doesn't look like we have any there, so you didn't get put on the spot. So thank you for joining us this evening. And to my audience, I just want to end with the Business Alliance is here. We're here to support our businesses, our members, and make sure that we're doing what we need to do to bring you information. Tonight's one of those. We'll be having another session on next Tuesday as well for one of the other primary races that's going to be happening in what will then be almost 8 days. So look forward to Tuesday night as well. Those that need to put somebody into some educational series, the Executive Academy is up and running, so please take a look at it on our website. And with that, I sign off. Fiona, have a great evening. Thanks for joining this evening, and to all that was able to hang in. And you had almost 40 people, so it was pretty good. All have a good night, and I hope to see you all again next Tuesday. Take care.